Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to take a look at a new firmware update from Tamron, which they claim is going to improve autofocus speed and tracking on some of their telephoto lenses. This firmware 2.0 affects the 50 to 400 millimeter, which I have done some tests on here today, also the 150 to 500 millimeter. And the claim from Tamron is that this firmware obviously taps into some new algorithms and allows the autofocus motor to improve performance in these telephoto lenses. And so what I've done is that Tamron sent me out two copies of the 50 to 400 millimeter lens. One is running the firmware 1.0, and then I put a little bit of a sticker on another so I know which was which. And this other one is running the firmware 2.0. And so today I met up with my friends from Jengar Goldens, which are always great to supply me dogs for running and testing. And I shot hundreds and hundreds of shots. And so I'm going to start to show you some here today. So first of all, from the firmware 1.0, truth of the matter is that this lens already was pretty good into the tracking department. But what I noticed is that there would be some very occasional swings where focus would move forwards or backwards. And then as the subject started to get closer to the camera, I got much more inconsistent results in terms of back focus results. What I noted when it came to the firmware 2.0 is, first of all, I noticed that tracking acquisition was a little bit better in that I would purposely start to where I wasn't, locked on focus. And so you can see in a first shot or so of a sequence that focus is not where I want it on the subject. But then immediately by about the second shot in the sequence, it would move on to focus. So it was better in picking up focus. And then I also noticed an improvement when the subject got closer to the camera, that tracking stayed true a little bit closer. And even as the subject drew close to the camera, that it stayed consistently there. And so as a byproduct of that, I would say as I went through these hundreds of shots, eyes kind of glazing over, but looking all of them at 100% magnification, I would say that the performance here that I saw was really about as good as what I've seen from any kind of third-party lens. I'm still not 100% convinced that it is as good as the very best Sony telephoto lenses. And one thing that I did look for, just in case, was to see if the limitation had been lifted when it comes to on my Alpha 1, which I did the test on, whether or not I was still capped at 15 frames per second with a third-party lens like the Tamron. Fortunately, that is still the case. But at the same time, I can happily report that this is a very real improvement and certainly gives some very strong autofocus tracking performance with these lenses. And the truth of the matter is that the performance, both in frames per second and the tracking performance, is better than anything that I had seen up until just a few years ago, where mirrorless cameras have really gone next level when it comes to their tracking abilities. Another thing that is being announced and rolled out right now from Tamron that might be of interest on a different tack is that some of Tamron's newest lenses have come with a USB-C port, including the 35 to 150 millimeter lens, which I love. And so that USB port allows you to use their lens utility software. Well, they are rolling out for Android phones, probably because Android leverages the USB-C protocol for its charge and communication port. But they have rolled out a version of that software for Android phones. And so when I first tried to connect it, it did immediately do a pop-up, asked if I wanted to use the lens utility software. And then because the firmware wasn't yet upgraded on my 35 to 150 millimeter, it said the lens not supported, needed a firmware upgrade. So I went back to my computer, I upgraded the firmware, and I came back and I was able to control it through there. And so it allows you to make tweaks on the fly to your lens, and also it could be genuinely useful for some people who are wanting to preset certain focus distances or focus pulls for video work, because you can program that all through a phone, which means you're eliminating a laptop or a desktop as a part of that process. My only critique is the fact that for trying to streamline this process, it would have been nice to be able to do that firmware update right there via the phone, rather than having to go back to a computer at that point. So maybe that is one tweak that could be improved for the future. But certainly great to see Tamron kind of moving ahead on the technology side, along with producing some really good lenses optically. And at the end of the day, the best news about both of these things is that they're coming to us as consumers free of charge. So Hard to complain about that at the end of the day. If you want more information on my reviews of either the 50 to 400 millimeter or the 150 to 500 millimeter telephoto zooms from Tamron, you can see links in the description down below to both of those things and a follow up on that. I'm Dustin Abbott. Thanks for watching today. As always, you can follow myself or Craig on social media. In the description down below, you can get channel merchandise, become a patron. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.